With Trump being elected, everyone is wondering what they can expect out of the economy. So in this video, I'm going to give you a breakdown of some of the fundamentals that you can expect so you can be better prepared for what's going to happen. Welcome to the AlterNate Vantage. My name is Nate, and this is where I provide a different perspective on finances, news, and generational wealth. If you like this kind of content, then don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, back to the video. So the Trump economy involves three main categories, which are tax cuts, tax increases, and deregulation. So for the first category, he's called for tax cuts on tips, overtime, and he wants to increase tax credits for children. He's also discussed eliminating or reducing the taxes associated with auto loans. This essentially keeps more money in the hands of consumers, speaking kind of broadly here. This will create more saving and it'll create more spending, which is good for both businesses and consumers. In the restaurant industry in particular, I think this is actually going to lead to more job hiring, which is overall a good thing. So on the surface level, there's really not much that can go wrong here. As a matter of fact, it's mostly positive, but I wanted to give you an example as to why this can be so positive. So just looking at the data of bartenders and waitresses, there's about $32 billion that's handed over the counter in the form of tips every single year. And this is on the low side because we're not counting things like Uber and hairdressers and things of that sort. So just for easy math, let's just assume that all of these individuals pay 10% in taxes every year. So that would be about $3.2 billion in tax revenue that they'd previously lose and go to the government. But now if we're going to be cutting taxes on those types of wages, then that's $3.2 billion that gets to stay in the economy year over year. So overall, what this is doing is just keeping more money in circulation in the local economy instead of being drained out into the government where it goes nowhere or overseas. And anyways, it's overall, like I said, a good thing for people in general. Now let's talk about tax increases. Specifically, we're talking about tariffs. Now this has been a hot topic for the past few weeks now because it seems like for whatever reason, people think that there's just like a surface level understanding of tariffs, but when you go down into it, it actually gets much, much deeper than you think. So tariffs are designed to target specific foreign producers to make their goods essentially more expensive, thus incentivizing Americans and businesses to buy stuff in the US instead. Now, in general, this is an inflationary practice because if the goods that you were getting overseas and you were getting them overseas because they were cheaper, if they all of a sudden become far more expensive, and you're now forced to buy the goods that are in the US, which you previously avoided because the foreign goods were cheaper, then obviously this is going to end up driving prices higher because ultimately the people who are paying for the tariffs are the businesses, meaning the people who are ultimately paying for the tariffs are the consumers. So if prices go up for their foreign goods, thus they have to look elsewhere, thus driving up prices overall. Now, for the most part, this is where people typically end the conversation, which doesn't make any sense at all because this has far more long-term effects than it does short-term effects. And the long-term effects are far greater than the short-term effects. And here's what I mean. One critical factor revolving around tariffs is the fact that it's simply keeping more money circulating inside of the United States, which is a good thing. If you think of it this way, if we're consistently buying stuff that's being imported into the US, thus we're sending dollars overseas, that's money leaving the economy. That's not money going to American workers, it's going to foreign workers. That's not money going to, the US government in the form of tax revenue. That's going to the foreign government in the form of tax revenue. So it's only money leaving your ecosystem. And whenever you have that taking place, that means it's a drain. It's a bad thing. It's a net negative for you and the economy. What you want is more money coming into the economy or keeping more money in the economy. And tariffs do exactly that. One critical impact of tariffs is it keeps more money circulating inside the US economy, which is overall a net positive event. It means more jobs, it means wage increases, it means more economic activity, and it also means more tax revenue for the government, which is the overall goal for tariffs to begin with. And just as an example, right now the US imports about $33 billion of steel every single year, which is a lot of money. Now, if we were all of a sudden to apply a 100% tariff on all steel imports, that would mean it's not going to cost US business $33 billion a year to get steel. It's going to cost them $66 billion a year to get steel. For most businesses, they're going to say, that's a no deal for me. I'll just buy my steel elsewhere. And the whole idea is to buy that steel inside of the US. So now, instead of $33 billion a year being exported overseas because we're buying foreign goods, that $33 billion roughly is going to stay circulating inside of the US, or at least that's the whole goal. And that's $33 billion the first year, it's another $33 billion the second year, another $33 billion the third year, and so on and so on. It's a compounding number. Now, this is just an example of the circulation of money. What I'm trying to say is, if you're keeping more money inside your economy, you're encouraging more money to come inside the economy. That is an overall net positive event for the long term for everybody who is inside of that economy, like US citizens. Now, obviously, we wouldn't go full cold turkey because we get our steel from everywhere. A lot of the things that Trump has talked about in his economy is applying these tariffs towards China, which steel is only a small fraction of that, but it also applies to other goods as well. In any situation, when you apply tariffs, you're just encouraging more money to be circulating inside of that economy, which once again is overall a net positive for everyone involved, regardless of the short-term price increases that we may experience. Over the long term, we're going to have more wealth. Last category is deregulation. As a quick heads up, this is mostly rumor mill and is not necessarily a projection of policy. The idea here is that Trump wants to eradicate or greatly reduce the amount of regulations that currently impedes US businesses from doing things as effectively and efficiently as possible. Because across the board, regulation essentially does one and only thing when it comes to businesses, and that means it makes them less profitable. These companies have to start abiding by certain restrictions, which aren't always necessary. They have to hire specified labor to support those regulations and monitor them. Sometimes they have to produce more expensive materials, which also a lot of times not necessary, but then they have to pass those costs on to the consumer. This rabbit hole actually goes pretty deep when you look at it, but overall, if you were to reduce or eradicate some regulations altogether, it would tremendously open up the economy. One area in particular is energy, which Trump has talked about specifically. If this were to take place and it would just cut production costs by just a few percentage points, the domino effect on every other US product would be tremendous. Everything uses energy. So if you decrease the cost of energy, you decrease the cost of everything else. And even if you don't decrease the cost of energy, but you increase the speed of production, it still produces the same result, which is part of the goal here when it comes to energy as an example in the oil market. They're trying to make it more effective, more efficient for new investors to come in with upstream projects to start drilling faster to increase production, thus decreasing costs overall. So pairing all three of these things together, the whole intention is to keep more money in the US and encourage more money to flood into the US. If we're decreasing taxes on tips, on overtime and things of that sort, that's more money circulating in the economy. If we increase tariffs for specific foreign products, that's increasing circulation of money in the economy. If we decrease energy costs, that means it's decreasing all of the costs for every single business, for every single industry inside the US, which means what? It means more money circulating inside the economy. So these are three quick things that I foresee based on what we know so far. Only time will tell if these things come to fruition, but based on the rhetoric, I'm hopeful that we'll have a better economic climate, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and with that, I'll catch ya in the next one.